Richard Ramirez spent 23 years on death row, staring down the final hours of his life. The man known as the Night Stalker faced the death penalty for a murderous rampage that terrified Southern California. Hit that like button and subscribe to be part of our growing community. Before he was the Night Stalker, before the nation knew his name as one of the most feared killers on death row, Richard Ramirez was just a child. Born Ricardo Leyva Muñoz Ramírez on February 29, 1960 in El Paso, Texas. But behind that ordinary birth record was a storm waiting to explode. Richard grew up in a home filled with violence, trauma, and fear. His father, Julian Ramirez, was known for his explosive temper, a man who often beat his children, sometimes without reason. From a young age, Richard learned that pain was power. By the age of 10, he had already witnessed more than most adults could bear. One of the darkest influences in his life came from his cousin Miguel Ramirez, a Vietnam War veteran who showed him horrifying photographs of women he claimed to have assaulted and killed during combat. Miguel even taught Richard how to stalk and kill silently. Wait, what? A child learning about murder before learning about love? That was the beginning of a psychological descent few would ever escape. At 13, Richard watched Miguel shoot and kill his wife right in front of him. Imagine that. The only male figure he admired committing murder in cold blood. It's said that this moment shattered something inside him. Some psychologists later called it his point of no return. As he drifted through adolescence, Ramirez turned to drugs, mainly marijuana, LSD, and cocaine, as a way to escape the nightmares inside his head. He started sleeping in graveyards, breaking into homes, and stealing for thrill rather than survival. Each crime was a small rehearsal for what would come later. By the late 1970s, he had moved to California, the place that would become both his hunting ground and his prison. He became obsessed with the occult, reading books about Satanism and the power of darkness. He wore a pentagram on his hand and began believing he was chosen by evil itself. But was it pure evil, or the twisted outcome of childhood trauma, untreated mental illness, and a broken system that never intervened? Could this have been prevented if someone had reached out? Or was Richard Ramirez always destined for the shadows? Drop your thoughts in the comments. What's chilling is that while many were trying to build their lives in the golden glow of Los Angeles, Ramirez was prowling its streets, studying how to break into homes, how to move silently, how to strike when no one expected it. He wasn't just committing crimes, he was refining them. And as he fell deeper into addiction, hallucinations, and violent fantasies, one thing became clear. Richard Ramirez wasn't running from his demons anymore. He was becoming one. This is where the transformation ends and the terror begins. By 1984, Los Angeles had already seen its share of crime, but nothing could prepare the city for the nightmare that was about to begin. In June of that year, 79-year-old Jenny Vincow became Richard Ramirez's first known murder victim. She was found brutally stabbed and slashed in her apartment in Glassell Park. Her throat had been cut so deeply she was nearly decapitated. Police were horrified, not only by the savagery of the attack, but by the chilling realization that the killer had broken in while she slept. There was no forced entry, no sign of mercy, only rage. That single murder would mark the beginning of a reign of terror that would span from Los Angeles to San Francisco. A series of home invasions, murders, sexual assaults, and robberies that left entire neighborhoods living in fear. The press would soon give him a name, the Night Stalker. Ramirez didn't have a specific victim type, and that's what made him so unpredictable, so terrifying. He killed the elderly, attacked couples, assaulted women and children, and sometimes spared victims seemingly at random. Age, gender, race, none of it mattered. To him, every life was prey. On March 17, 1985, he attacked Maria Hernandez and Dale Okazaki in their Los Angeles homes. Maria survived after raising her hands in reflex as he fired, but Dale wasn't so lucky. She was shot and killed instantly. Within an hour, Ramirez struck again, shooting Cy Leon Veronica Yu as she drove her car in Monterey Park. 3 victims, 2 scenes, 1 night. The city panicked. Police held press conferences, community patrols formed, people nailed their windows shut, but Ramirez seemed to move like a shadow, always one step ahead. Then came Vincent and Maxine Zazara. The couple was found murdered in their Whittier home on March 27, 1985. Vincent had been shot as he slept, and Maxine was found brutally mutilated, her body desecrated in ways too horrifying for broadcast. Ramirez had carved a pentagram on her thigh, a satanic symbol he would later display on his hand in court. As investigators linked cases through fingerprints, bullets, and a rare shoe print from an Avia sneaker, they realized they weren't chasing a normal criminal. They were chasing chaos in human form. By summer, the body count was rising. William and Lily Doy murdered in Arcadia. Peter and Barbara Pan shot and assaulted in their San Francisco home. Elias Abawath and Chitat Asawahim, among others. Each scene told the same story: forced entry through a window or unlocked door, random violence and signs of sexual assault. The Night Stalker didn't hide his evil, he glorified it. Survivors recalled him saying, "Swear to Satan," as he assaulted them. The media frenzy exploded. The satanic angle made headlines, and the people of California were gripped by horror. Police departments across counties, Los Angeles, Monterey Park, San Francisco, began working together, comparing ballistic evidence and shoe prints. But Ramirez, addicted to cocaine and adrenaline, wasn't done. He was spiraling, sleeping in stolen cars, breaking into homes for food and money, convinced he was invisible. That illusion shattered on August 31, 1985, when he walked into a convenience store in East Los Angeles. Inside, customers recognized his face from the newspaper. "That's him, the Night Stalker," someone shouted. He ran, but the crowd ran faster. Neighbors chased him, tackled him, and beat him until police arrived. The man who terrorized California for over a year was finally in handcuffs. For the first time, the city could breathe again. But the damage was already done. Over a dozen people dead, many more scarred for life. Still, the question lingered. Was Richard Ramirez simply born evil? Or did a lifetime of trauma and neglect create the monster the world came to fear? When Richard Ramirez finally stood trial, the courtroom became more than a stage for justice. It became a national obsession. The man who once stalked the shadows now sat under bright lights, chained, smirking, and unrepentant. It was the summer of 1988, and the true crime world turned its eyes to the Night Stalker trial, one of the most expensive and sensational murder cases in California history. The charges were staggering: 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. Each count painted a chilling portrait of cruelty. The prosecution called him a predator beyond redemption. The defense hinted at insanity, childhood trauma, and possible brain damage from head injuries and substance abuse. Reporters filled the courtroom every day. Outside, crowds shouted, "Death! Death!" demanding the death penalty. Inside, Ramirez seemed almost to enjoy it. He grinned at cameras, flashed a pentagram on his palm, and whispered to reporters, "Hail Satan!" Wait, what? A man accused of 13 murders showing zero remorse? Some said he was pure evil. Others wondered if he was performing for fame, the ultimate showman of horror. Witness after witness took the stand, survivors recounting the nightmarish attacks, forensic experts linking fingerprints, ballistic evidence, and shoe prints to Ramirez's Avia sneakers. The evidence was overwhelming. His fingerprints matched, his teeth impressions matched, his gun matched the bullets that tore through his victims. When the verdict was finally read on September 20th, 1989, the courtroom fell silent. Richard Ramirez was found guilty on all counts. Then came the sentence, death by gas chamber. As the judge read the sentence, Ramirez smirked and said, "Big deal. Death always comes with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland." A line that shocked the nation and forever cemented his image as one of America's most remorseless killers. But here's the question that haunts every true crime watcher. Was this justice? Some argued that executing him would make society no better than the killer himself. Others said that letting him live was an insult to the victims' families who would never again see their loved ones. Drop your thoughts in the comments. As the years dragged on, appeals mounted, and the cost of keeping Ramirez on death row soared into the millions. He became a dark celebrity, receiving letters from fans, even marriage proposals. In 1996, he married a freelance magazine editor named Doreen Leoy, who claimed he was misunderstood. The world watched in disbelief. Psychologists called it hybristophilia, the strange attraction to those who commit violent crimes. Was it a symptom of society's obsession with evil, or proof that darkness has its own kind of charm? While his victims' families struggled to rebuild their lives, Ramirez lived behind the walls of San Quentin State Prison, waiting for a death sentence that never came. Year after year, the Night Stalker filed appeals, each one delaying the inevitable. But in the end, it wasn't the gas chamber that claimed him, it was his own failing body. Before we get to that, his final hours, take a moment to imagine the silence of those courtroom walls after the verdict. Justice had spoken. But had peace truly been delivered? For nearly 24 years, Richard Ramirez lived in the shadow of death, confined to a small, cold cell on California's death row at San Quentin State Prison. He was one of over 700 inmates waiting for execution, but the Night Stalker seemed to feed off the darkness around him. Inside those prison walls, he remained defiant, reading books on Satanism, listening to heavy metal, and writing letters to admirers who called him handsome and misunderstood. In a place where silence echoes louder than screams, Ramirez became a myth. Some guards said he never showed fear. Others claimed they'd see him smiling into the corner of his cell, as if whispering to someone who wasn't there. His cell was his kingdom, his mirror a shrine. And while the world outside moved on, families of his victims still lived with the scars he left behind. The man condemned to die by gas chamber would never make it there. In 2013, Ramirez's body began to fail him. Decades of substance abuse and neglect caught up fast. Diagnosed with B-cell lymphoma, a rare form of cancer, he was transferred from San Quentin to Marin General Hospital. There was no media circus this time, no crowd shouting for justice. Only quiet. The devil's student, the man who once swore allegiance to darkness, was dying, slowly, painfully, and out of the spotlight he once craved. On June 7, 2013, at 53 years old, Richard Ramirez was pronounced dead. No final words were spoken, no final meal requested. He slipped away quietly, surrounded not by demons or cameras, but by the cold sterility of a hospital room. Some called it divine irony, that a man who brought so much terror to others would die powerless, alone, and unseen. Others felt cheated. The execution never came. Justice, they said, had been delayed, and maybe even denied. Was that the system failing again? Or was that fate giving him the slow, silent punishment he truly deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. In the aftermath, investigators revisited the case. Some details still disturbed them. The randomness of his violence, the satanic symbols, the lack of remorse. Psychologists said Ramirez embodied the darkest corners of the human psyche. A man born from trauma, fueled by hate, and consumed by evil. Yet even in death, he fascinated millions. Documentaries, books, and online debates continue to ask, was he born a monster or made by one? For his victims' families, though, there was no question. The wounds never healed, and no punishment could undo what he had done. The story of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, isn't just another true crime documentary about murder and execution. It's a chilling reminder of how darkness can be born, nurtured, and unleashed when humanity turns its back. He was raised in violence, molded by trauma, and seduced by the idea of power through pain. Some call him evil incarnate. Others, a broken product of a system that never healed him. Whatever you believe, one thing is certain. His crimes left scars far deeper than the victims he murdered. They tore through families, through communities, through the very sense of safety people once felt in their homes. When the world learned that Ramirez had died of natural causes instead of facing the death penalty, outrage erupted. Justice seekers said he escaped his sentence. Empaths wondered if his slow decay behind bars was punishment enough. Psychologists called it the tragic finale of a life spiraling from trauma to terror. But beneath all the noise, the documentaries, the photos, the satanic symbols, lies the question that will always divide us. What truly creates a killer? Is it evil, or is it everything we refuse to confront about the world we live in? And if justice means peace, then why did so many still feel haunted long after he was gone? Maybe the lesson isn't about Ramirez himself, but about the cost of ignoring the warning signs, the bruises, the broken homes, the silent children who grow into monsters when no one listens. His story ended on death row, but for many, the nightmare still lives on in memory. So, what do you think? Did the punishment fit the crime, or did the system fail again? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the haunting world of death row.